Hey, book lovers, book readers, book friends. Welcome to Read This Book. I am your book hostess, LaShonda, bringing you this week's book review of Simply Love by Bianca Xaviera. Yeah, let's get into it. Miss Bianca had dropped a snippet of this book on her Facebook page, and I read the whole snippet and I was like, girl, when can we get this book? When is it dropping? I need it in my life. I need to know what is up with this story. It is the story of Lavender, which, love the name, it's unique. How many people you know named Lavender? None of them. But it's the story of Lavender. Lavender is a young woman that is troubled, but she's troubled because her uncle-in-law basically molested, raped her from the time she was 8 until he got her pregnant at 13. Yeah, asshole. He deserves to die. But anyway, it's the story of Lavender, who is pregnant at 13. She gets sent away to the girls' home for pregnant girls to have her baby, and it's basically talked out of giving it up for adoption that she should keep her baby at 13. Lavender is like, no. I'm not ready to be anybody's mom. And so she returns back to her hometown and she drops the baby off at her grandmother's doorstep, and then she breaks camp. She's out. And I'm like, girl, that's not the way. But okay. So she basically runs away from home. She's picked up by this guy at a gas station who's on his way to Vegas. And so she rides with him. Fast forward that she's in Vegas, and of course, this guy is a pimp. He is a creep. He's a sex trafficker. He is the worst. And the saving grace is that he doesn't put her out on the streets at 13. He basically clothes her and feeds her and puts her out on the street at 16. The things that she experienced, the things that were done to her, no woman at any age at any time should ever have to go through. And so I'm reading this and my heart is just breaking for her because she goes from bad to worse. And I know you're like, wait, how is that worse? Yeah, it's worse. The things that she did for money that he allowed to be done to her. She's basically hooked, on drugs because that's how she copes with what her life is, with what she has to do. So she's hooked on drugs, and she's basically a prostitute. She's being used up in every way, fashion, and form. It's horrible to read. And I'm experiencing those feelings, those emotions. I'm experiencing her just like, how is this my life? I'm like, ugh, this book is gonna break me. And so you fast forward, she's in this life and the guy gets busted. And so it's her break. She sees it as an opportunity to move on and try to do something different, with her life. And so she winds up in Key West, Florida, which Key West is pretty kind of awesome. I like it, but it's far from me. But anyway, she relocates to Key West and she's basically like working in a bar. Turns out she has a really beautiful voice and she can sing. And so sometimes she sings at this club. But she's also tricking. She's still having sex with men for money. She's also sleeping with a married man who owns the club and who basically puts her up in a condo. She's still very much doing drugs. She has a drug of choice. And so you're like, okay, Lavender, girl, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, girl. But then also it's like, well, that's all she knows. All she knows is to turn tricks and to get high so she doesn't have to feel, she doesn't have to think about what she's actually doing. I'm like, okay, this book is gonna break me. So then Lavender's grandmother goes to the pastor of her church, and he's like, talk to my son because his son preached whatever that day. And so she went to him and she was like, I'm dying. I need you to find my granddaughter. I need her to come back because I need to make amends. And he was like, okay, how do you expect me to find her if you don't know where she is? You don't know if she's dead or alive. And he's just kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I'm like, okay. And so he talks to his father, and his father was like, see if you can help her. She's been with this church forever. She's like the mother of the church. She's the salt of the earth, yada, yada. See if you can help her find her granddaughter, whatever. So he's like, okay. He was like, this is, God wants you to do this. And I'm like, really? Okay. And so, the minister that she's talking to, his name is Shaheem. He's a younger minister. He's a youth minister, whatever. And he's also, a successful business owner. He has a lot of rental properties. He invests, he has some really good investments. He's basically rich. And so his brother is like, hey, you should go to Key West because there's a lot of good properties down there. It's always a lot of tourists, yada, yada. Go check it out. Hook up with my man, Charles. And so he's like, okay. So he's like, I'm going to go to Key West. Shaheem is engaged to Maddie. Maddie was childhood friends with Lavender. Maddie is a little annoying. She's insecure and she's stupid. But we'll talk about her later. So he's like, hey, Maddie, I'm going to go to Key West in a couple weeks. Clear your schedule. We'll go. We'll have like a little weekend trip. I got to see some properties and then we'll just chill. And she was like, I'm going on vacation with Shaheem, because he's like the biggest catch in this small town. He's handsome, he's rich, he's a minister's son, he also preaches. So he's like the catch, right? And so she's trying to make sure that she secure her man, that she, does whatever he wants done, so that she can maintain her spot, maintain her status. And she's not dumb, by the way. She's like a nurse. She's, educated and whatever, but she's super insecure. And as you read the book, she just will annoy you more and more with her freaking, yeah. Anyway, we're not going to talk about Maddie. So Shaheem lands in Key West. He hooks up with Charles, who takes him, around the island, shows him a couple of properties and things like that. And they're just kind of talking. And so then later that night, Shaheem was like, I'm going to take a walk, see what's happening in Key West, kind of what's the appeal. Maddie was like, okay, I'm not feeling that well. I'm going to lay down, whatever. So he's like, okay. So he's out walking, whatever, and he hears Lavender singing and he is drawn to her voice. And so he steps into the club, he sees Charles and nearly like talk, whatever, but he's like drawn to Lavender. Like her voice is, excuse me, her voice is beautiful. She's beautiful. And he's just like, wow. He has no idea that that's Lavender until they say her name. And he was like, what? Like, okay, this is God. This is, he meant for me to come here and find her. And so after her set, he goes to her and he was like, hey, I really enjoyed your singing. It was so beautiful. It's like one of my favorite songs. And she was like, okay, so you wanna hook up? And he was like, what? And she's like, you want to hook up? It's X, Y, and Z. We got a place we can go. We can get it in. You fine, whatnot. He was like, no, I'm not trying to hook up with you. I'm coming to bring you home. Your grandmother is dying. You need to return back, to Mississippi because she wants to see you. She's dying. Lavender flips the script. She was like, I ain't going nowhere with you and nobody. I'm not returning home. She can kick rocks. Girlfriend goes off like 0 to 100. She don't care that he's a minister, nothing. The fact that he's a minister, it makes her even more mad. When I tell you she gave him the business, she gave him the business. She was like, you can kick rocks. You can go to hell. My grandmother can go to hell. I ain't doing it. I'm not going back there. Bye-bye. So at this point, she was like, he done blew my high. Mad as hell. So he's like, okay. I'm going to give you some space. And so, she's like, mad, whatever, just really agitated about the whole situation. So she decides she's going to go get something to eat. Well, Maddie, decides she's going to get something to eat, and they bump into each other at this restaurant. And Lavender is like so surprised to see her, like so excited to see her. And Maddie was full on bitch. Like, basically, like, how dare you? We thought you was dead. You didn't care about us. Yeah, I mean, just like having a full-on meltdown. And Lavender's like, well, damn. You know, you weren't 13 with a baby. You weren't raped. You know what? And so Maddie's like all indignant and like, you know, just goes off to the left. Girl, she don't know Lavender. Lavender had to check her, and she checked her hard. I was like, you had that one coming, Maddie. All you had to do was chill and be like, girl. But no, Lavender had to check her, and it was brutal, and I was here for it. So anyway, again, Lavender is having an affair with Charles. Charles is showing Shyheim the properties and whatnot. Shyheim is like, dude, you know, what's up with you and her? You know, he's trying to tell Shyheim that, you know, he loves her. You know, he's never, you know, felt this way about her, you know, like all this stuff, you know, and Shyheim's like, dude, you're married. Okay. So, you know, Maddie comes back. She tells Shyheim that she was mugged and that she just want to drop it. She wants to return. Well, he can't return because he still has some business to do, but he's like, okay, I'll send you back. Shyheim just wouldn't let it rest. He was like, wait a minute, because if my woman was mugged, I need to know what's what. And so he goes to the police station and was like, hey, you know, I just want to find out what happened to, you know, the person that assaulted my fiance. And the lady at the desk was like, there was no assaults. There was no arrest last night for assaults. There was drunk and disorderly, but not assaults. And he was like, what? And so he's pissed. By this time, Maddie's on her way back to Mississippi, and he's like pissed. Like, how you gonna play me like that? What happened to you? He still doesn't know. He don't know that Lavender happened to her. So he's looking at properties, whatever. He, you know, keeps trying to talk to Lavender, keep trying to, you know, get her to come back. And like, he's stressing her to the point where she ODs. And they find her and try to revive her and whatever. And somehow she ends up on his plane going back to Mississippi because he's rich and he has his own plane. Yeah. But don't cheer for Shyheim. Don't cheer for him. So anyway, they get back to Mississippi. She basically has nothing. She doesn't want to see her grandmother. He's like, listen, you know, just chill. You need to take some time. She goes, you know, I need all my stuff. You just basically uprooted me. He was like, you asked me to bring you here. But in the meantime, he's trying to fight this attraction. And he's also not being honest with Maddie about Lavender being in Mississippi and being in his rental property. So Shyheim, I hate the name. While his intentions were good in the beginning, you know what happens, right? You know what happens. You know? Okay. So Lavender is basically the Jezebel that comes in and wrecks Shyheim and Maddie's relationship. She's also trying to push his buttons, trying to get him to be what she knows, which is just another trick, just another guy to give her money, just another way to get drugs, just another way to not feel. But he's forcing her to feel things, to confront things, to, you know, like, hey, you have a gift, you can sing, you have so many other things that you was robbed of because of what happened to you, and it's not your fault. You know, it's not your fault that these things happen, but you're better than what you were. You know, he didn't see her past. He saw her. He saw her as a beautiful woman and not as a drug-addicted prostitute. You know that other people didn't see that, right? They just saw a drug-addicted prostitute and was like, dude, why you out here being Captain Save-A-Ho? The whole time I'm like, you are being Captain Save-A-Ho. Why are you doing this? Why are you ruining your relationship with Maddie? Why are you not? Dude, come on. So he's doing the most for Lavender. And when I say the most, okay? He is trying to connect her with her son. He's trying to heal the family structure here. He's also trying to like, okay, I love Maddie, but he wasn't really in love with Maddie. But she was acceptable to his father and mother, who was the head of the church, and you know, all this stuff. So you got this dynamic with him and Maddie. You got this dynamic with him and Lavender. You have this dynamic with him and his parents in the church community, which also was an interesting and powerful part of this book, was the church dynamic. Because as a minister, as a pastor, You know, you have to hold yourself to a certain standard. And Shaheem wasn't about, I mean, him and Maddie was living together. Of course, you know, they was having sex, which we know everybody has sex. But again, there's that myth and that stereotype that, you know, pastors don't do that. They don't, you know, there's no sex before marriage. They supposed to be abstaining. You know, they're not supposed to be living together. They're not supposed to be, you know, this. And Shaheem was like, nah, I gotta live with somebody before I know what they about. I need to know, because I just can't wake up to no chaos. He was very like, to me, he was a narcissist. He was very much like a control freak, and like, I'm the shit, so therefore, yeah. And then he was a minister on top of it. So I was like, dude, you suck. But he sucked not because he was a minister, but because of some of the stupid decisions that he made and some of the dumb things that he did. So anyway, fast forward, you know, Lavender is back. You know, she doesn't want to face everything, but she does. And when she starts, it's just too much, and she falls back into what she knows. And then she ODs, and he puts her into a rehab, which again is causing conflict between him and Maddie. So let me just wrap this up, because I don't want to give this whole thing away. The dynamic with this, all these things come together and it blows up, and it is ugly. And when I say ugly, it is ugly. Maddie just loses her shit. She pulls the oldest tricks in the book, and when that doesn't work, she just basically explodes, and it's ugly and it's sad. And I feel for her on a certain level, because yeah, I'd be mad too if my fiance is in love with a former drug addicted prostitute, who has a son that she's never met, who on paper doesn't even match me. She's not even, you know, this, that, and the other. But on the same hand, you're like, but Maddie, you're insecure and needy, and you should have saw this for what it was. Because I didn't feel that she was ever in love with Shaheem either. I think he was safe and he was comfortable, and he would allow her to have a bigger lifestyle than what she had. So everything just like explodes. The church is like, what the hell? You know, and they come at him, and he was like, kick rocks. You know, his parents, all these things. And at the end, you know, you have Lavender, who's trying to connect with her son, who's trying to forgive her grandmother, who's trying to get past these demons, and they just keep coming back. This book was everything. Everything. And I got so many little nuggets out of it about Christianity, about love, about just, being true to who you are. Just so many things. Just, it had me in my feelings. It had me cursing. It had me laughing. It had me just like, dude, put on your cape, be Captain Save-A-Ho. But he actually was living true to being a Christian, of not judging people, of loving your neighbor as yourself. Yeah, it took me a moment to get to that. I ain't gonna lie, because the whole time I was like, Captain Save-A-Ho, you stupid, and I don't like you. And you was dirty for how you did Maddie. But overall, this book is excellent. It is a book slay for me. I am here for it. I love Bianca. I just discovered her. She's actually have written several books. There's a whole history there. But Bianca Xaviera, you did that. I love this book, and you should read it. Read it. Simply Love, Bianca Xaviera. The link to purchase is in the comments below. Let me know if you read it, because I'm interested to hear everyone's take on this book, to see if you just was like, if you had to clutch your pearls, if you had to toss it. I'm just really curious as to how people react to this book, because for me, I had all the emotions, all the feels. It had drama. It had drama and just everything. Read this book, okay? You will not be disappointed. It's my first book slave for 2020. So you can see my write-up on the website at www.readthisbook.net. Find me over in the chat room on Facebook at Read This Book Chat Room. And we're also on Instagram. So until next time, read a good book.